Hi, I'm a Democrat.
Hi, I'm a Republican.
My name's David Ezrati,
My name is Rob Scott.
and we're here in Montgomery County, home of Dayton, Ohio, to talk about why you should consider being a precinct captain.
I like that idea.
So, Rob is the former chairperson of the local Republican Party, and it's very interesting the way he became that.
So, just to describe those who are watching this video, in order to become your party leader, specifically, your county chairman, and both parties has it. The Democrats have it, the Republicans have it, and it's all across 88 counties in Ohio. But here in Montgomery County, how I became chairman was I was able to recruit precinct captains to run in their neighborhoods for the precinct captain position, which is also called Central Committee. It's kind of interchangeable. And it's very simple, requires 5 valid signatures, so just don't get 5, get more than 5.
Of registered party members.
Correct.
And make sure they're signatures and not printed.
Correct. So there's a whole process that you have to go about getting a petition and how you fill it out and whatnot. And then you walk around your neighborhood, talk to your neighbors who are registered in your party. So if you're a Republican, you can only get Republican signatures. If you're a Democrat,
Only Democrat.
Right, that simple, and they have to be registered voters, and you will be on a ballot as a precinct captain. And then when you are elected, and if you don't have competition, obviously you're going to be elected. If you do have competition, then it's like a mini election in your neighborhood. But once you're a precinct captain, you are a sitting member of the Central Committee in your party. So whether, again, you're a Republican or a Democrat, and you have the ability to vote on certain matters like your party leadership, or like if your party endorses, like both parties do, they endorse, and we'll talk about that in a little bit later. But being a precinct captain actually is a very important role politically, so it gets you involved in your party. You get to know the people that are in your party, you get to know the elected officials, and then you get to represent your neighborhood on behalf of your political party.
And something that you might not know is Montgomery County used to have a whole lot more precincts. And how many years?
Over 500.
Over 500. And
now there's like 300.
300.
Yeah.
They cut the number of precincts down. And this was because a lot of seats just went unfilled. And that's a real problem, because when the seats go unfilled, guess who gets to fill them?
The party leadership.
And guess who they put in those positions?
Their friends.
Their friends and family. So
Yes.
We've been having what I call the monarchy of Montgomery County in both parties, picking and choosing who's going to make the decisions for the party. Now, you say, oh, what does a political party do that, is going to subvert the democratic process? Well, first off, both parties do this crazy thing that is unheard of in other counties of endorsing in a primary. That means before the people get to choose who they want to have in a primary, when you have 2 candidates that want the same seat, the party makes a choice for you.
And typically, just for you watching this video, it's governed supposedly by the bylaws of your local party. Both the Democrats and the Republican parties here in Montgomery County have bylaws. Well, surprise, surprise, 9 times out of 10, they don't even follow their own rules.
And suppose you do have somebody elected to office and they decide to step down. No, this never happens, does it?
Never.
They step down mid-term, and guess who gets to pick their successor?
The party.
The party. So we often have the torch handed mid-term from one candidate to the next, making them an incumbent, and it's very hard to beat an incumbent. I always thought the best position to run for is auditor, because you get to put your name on every gas pump, every scale in the county at taxpayer expense.
Yep.
To make sure everybody knows your name.
But to talk a little bit more about the party doing the endorsements, it's not like it goes in front of the Central Committee for an up or down vote.
Oh, no. That would be too democratic.
There's a screening committee, which typically the party leadership chooses who's on the screening committee, and both parties do this.
Yes.
And then they put their recommended candidate before the body, and then the full body of the Central Committee, or the Central Committee that's
and have an open vote.
Vote.
Not usually, a closed ballot, a secret ballot, but an open vote to see basically if you're loyal to the king and the queen of the party.
Correct. So and what David means by an open thing, it's typically a voice vote or you raise your hand so everyone knows how you voted.
Yeah, you better vote with the party or you're not going to be that candidate when you want.
Correct. So it's very intimidating for a lot of people, and a lot of the precinct captains are intimidated by the process, but I don't want to discourage you from running, because that's one reason why we're doing this, is to encourage new people to run for precinct captains, to get involved in our local parties. What I always used to like to say, I'm a Republican, but I think the best thing in our democracy is if more people get involved, you get better candidates, you get better results from both parties.
Now, in politically astute, well-run counties, the precinct captains and the ward leaders actually are involved in getting out the vote and making sure there are block captains and people passing out the literature for free to help the candidates once they've made it past the primary. That never happens in Montgomery County. Who takes over those duties and responsibilities in the Democratic Party is the labor unions, who provide the muscle to do what they need. Now, one of the things about having your person in power, along with that comes this thing called patronage jobs.
Yes.
And so the people who get to hire the most patronage jobs usually end up having the most power in the party. So I hate to say this, but our county prosecutor has had an unbelievable impact on who gets to pick him to run unopposed year in, year out, because he stocks the Central Committee with his employees.
Yeah, and that's not unique. I mean, the clerk of courts also has a number of employees. Judges have employees that they ever, probate court has a number of employees. So.
Every one of these positions has at least some employees.
Correct.
And if you want to look around closely, you'll find a lot of the employees are the friends and family of other elected officials. For instance, Mayor Whaley's husband.
Yeah, Sam, yeah.
Yeah, Russ Joseph, Matt Joseph. I mean, it just goes hand in hand. There almost isn't a single party person who's central to the party that doesn't have some family working in another government position getting paid.
And not saying they're doing a bad job or anything like that, but it's just an example of how the party feeds on itself, and it's all interconnected. So
this subverts the democratic process, basically.
Correct. Now, to talk more about the precinct captains, and David alluded to this during campaign time, we just came out from national politics, the race between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and the precinct captains a lot of the precinct captains here in Montgomery County on both sides were involved in that. But I'll tell you one thing about precinct captains where they have even a larger impact is our local elections. It's easy for somebody like Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton to get their message out. It's not so easy for somebody running for school board or somebody that's running for city council or township trustee or whatever it may be, even state rep or
right.
a county office. They don't have that type of name ID nor the money to get their message out. So a lot of times it's the precinct captains in their neighborhoods that are walking with the candidate or walking for the candidate, knocking on doors, saying, "Hey, I'd like you to meet so and so. They're running for school board. I'm
or would you put a sign in your yard?" Or they get to know their neighborhood.
Exactly.
All politics is local is really the key to the precinct captains. Now, when do these precinct captains get elected? Well, this year the Democrats elect their precinct captains in the spring primary.
So does the Republicans.
We both do. Sorry,
yes.
I try to stay out of Republican Party politics. It's even more of a cesspool than the Democrats. But anyway, so your petitions are due by February 7th.
Correct.
And
the primaries in May.
The primaries in May. And if you find out that you're being opposed, you need to get a list from the Board of Elections or your party, which they really should help you out with this, of all the registered Democrats in your district and your precinct and the precinct map. They'll give those to you for free. And you need to go and walk and knock on the door and introduce yourself face to face. Not just drop off a piece of literature. You actually need to meet the people and talk to them, put a face to the name, explain why you're doing it, what your platform is, whether you're going to be following blindly along with the party or you're going to be an independent voice to represent your neighborhood, whether you're going to motivate, activate, get involved with your neighborhood, be that person. Now, the precincts don't match up with your neighborhood lines. So like my neighborhood has 3 different precincts in it, and that's common.
Yep.
So you might have to meet people outside of your neighborhood. And one other thing is, all the voters who are registered who are undecided, undeclared, they could vote in for you in the primary, because the primary in Ohio is where you state your party affiliation. There's no, I don't go in and sign up and say, oh, I'm a Democrat. It's by voting in a primary as a Democrat or a Republican.
Correct.
And it's crazy. There's a very small proportion of registered voters who actually vote in primaries. So the party faithful who always vote usually have the in to win on these elections, because they don't have to worry about all those other people who just aren't going to do it. There is no reason not to vote in a primary. And in Ohio, people say, oh, I want to be independent or undecided. Really, that just means you have one less vote to decide who's going to be on the ballot in the fall. And those decisions are the key decisions.
Yep.
Because most precincts, we can already tell if they're already Democrat or Republican. I mean, they have these maps, even at the local level.
Yep.
And you can tell who's going to win and who's going to not win by the turnout in each precinct. So this is an incredibly important part of the American democratic process that most people have no clue anything about.
And one thing David touched on for precinct captain, he said that there are some precincts that are red, i.e. Republican, some are blue. But if you're running as a precinct captain,
blue.
That doesn't really matter, because when you're on the ballot as a precinct captain, only Democrats can vote for you if you're a Democrat, and if you're a Republican, only Republicans can vote for you, because you're pulling that primary ballot. So you're only seeing Republicans or Democrats. Obviously, there's a nonpartisan ballot. You won't see either one if there's a ballot initiative or a local issue that's on your ballot.
Yeah, that's all you'll see. Yeah. You won't see any of the primary elections. So if there is a possibility you could go to the primary voting place and say I'm an independent, and there's nothing for you to vote on if there's no school levy or tax issue or anything else.
Correct.
So the only reason to go vote in a primary in Ohio is really to declare whether you're going to be a Democrat or a Republican. Now let's really talk briefly about Libertarians, Green Party, etc. What happens to these people?
From my perspective, their vote is quasi thrown away. And also the way Ohio is and the way the laws are written, it really in all states, because they favor both Republicans and Democrats, these parties are kind of thrown to the wayside.
Thrown under the bus.
Right.
So let me give you an example. To run for county office or to run for U.S. Congress as a Democrat or as a Republican, how many signatures do you need?
It's very minimal. I think
it's 50.
Like,
50 for Congress.
50 or 100.
50 signatures. Now it varies from election to election, from office to office. State and City Commission requires 500, which is ungodly. School board's 300 in Dayton. But
City Council in Kettering is 250.
Okay, so you see what happens. But for a county commissioner, it's 50 signatures.
Yep.
Now, if you're an independent,
it's a percentage of the last gubernatorial election.
Often meaning over 1,800 to 2,000 signatures.
Valid signatures.
And valid is important because the Montgomery County Board of Elections is one thing we don't get to vote on. Who gets to pick the people who are on the Board of Elections?
Republicans and Democrats.
The party.
Yeah.
And they do everything they can to disqualify signatures of non-preferred party candidates. They will check party candidate signatures in secret, but they won't do it for you. So we've had lots of candidates who've turned in thousands of signatures to see 30, 40, 50% of their signatures rejected, no matter how careful they are in collecting them.
What I will tell you is there are some resources online that David knows about, that if you are going to run as an independent candidate, you can look on how to make sure your petition is valid and whatnot before you go into the Board of Elections.
But in Ohio, it really is a disadvantage to declare as a third party at this point. We could change the laws, but that would require a whole bunch of independent-minded people getting in office and the parties to say, we're going to stop this predatory practice, this discriminatory practice that keeps people out of the political process and quiets other voices. Now, one other thing that you should know, besides being the party chair, Rob also worked at the Board of Elections. And didn't you work at the Board of Elections? I'm sorry.
No, never
worked at the
No, I was a troubleshooter. I worked 2 days a week, a year for them, but that
wasn't one of your early career.
No,
okay,
no.
But he's well versed. He's an attorney, so he's well versed in the ins and outs of all this. Anyways, that's the ins and outs and everything you need to know, right?
Yep. I mean, on the Republican side, I misspoke. The state central committee is up in the governor's years, governor primary years, and on the presidential years, our county central committee.
I thought they were different.
Yeah,
So-
they are. We're 2 years apart between
Right.
Democrats and Republicans.
So for the Democratic Party, this election is when we elect our central committee for the county level, and I think we do our state level during the presidential years.
Right.
So we're reversed.
Reversed, yes.
But do your part. If you're interested in politics, if you're interested in making a difference, pick up petitions and run for central committee. It only takes 5 signatures, and then if nobody opposes you, you're in.
Yeah.
Or if not, take our advice. Go meet the people in your neighborhood and make things happen.
And the time commitment for it is very minimal. I don't. How many meetings is
The
Democrats
party meets between 6 to 10 times a year, and you can miss a meeting or two. They meet on Thursday nights. It's not a real big deal. It takes an hour and a half. The crazy thing is they have 2 meetings, because the central committee elects an executive committee, and they have the same meeting for the executive first and then the central committee second. And there's no need for that. In a real democratic process, we just have an open meeting. 350 odd precincts, 150 people show up. You can have one meeting and discuss all the party's business out in the open.
On the Republican side, basically we don't have actual scheduled meeting. It's called. Normally there's about 3 to 4 called central committee meetings a year. Plus we have events like we have a
fundraisers.
Yeah, for the party. I mean,
Yeah.
every party needs some money to operate, but we have typically February timeframe. It's called the Lincoln Day Dinner, Lincoln Reagan Day Dinner. You guys have.
The Frolic for Funds.
Yeah, Frolic for Funds. And then
we used to have the Jackass Classic, but thank God that's...
And obviously you would be invited to that. And then also in the summer we typically have a picnic, and then there's other things that we do.
Some things the party can do to help you if you're one of their chosen candidates is they have the ability to send mail out at the political rate, which is cheaper than what you'll have to do if you have to pay regular U.S. postage, nonprofit, or for-profit, because most candidates can't set up the committee, so that their mailings can be cheaper. They have the access to all the party people. They have the email lists, and basically they should know who all the voters are and have a better way of reaching them than you do.
So, and the institutional knowledge.
Right.
I mean, the party structures are there, to be the conduit, to get their people elected into office. That's the whole role.
They're supposed to provide technical support to campaigns to help you get elected.
Correct.
And training. How much of that goes on? The Democrats have gotten a little better at it lately. I don't know what's happened in the Republican Party.
We're getting better.
One other thing. Let's talk about the dirty little secret in Dayton. How about the backroom agreements not to oppose certain candidates?
So it's long-standing tradition, and both sides do this, where you say, hey, we've got this county elected person, whether it be a judge or prosecutor, sheriff, or coroner or engineer or whatever, it doesn't matter. There's an agreement between the parties a lot of times that, hey, we won't oppose the engineer if you don't oppose the coroner or whatever.
Because we don't want to spend our money on these little races that nobody really cares about.
But it's been going on for...
And then when it comes to judges, which is even more interesting, because judges can't appear with a D or an R on the ballot.
Well, they can't. Well, there is a primary. They can be on a primary.
They can be on a primary.
After that, no.
After that, no.
Right.
So the general public comes and they don't know who's who.
Correct.
And judges can't ever say what their own opinion is. All they can say is, here's my qualifications, and I'm going to follow the law.
Correct.
So it's kind of crazy, but once a judge gets elected, the tacit agreement is we don't ever run against you unless you really screw up or you die.
Yeah.
Or you age out.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah, typically unless
a judgeship is for life in Montgomery County.
Well, until you age out, because there is
until you age out
70 years of age, but
or you really screw up.
Yeah, you got to not be a quality judge in order for
somebody to challenge you.
Correct.
And it doesn't happen often.
Not that often. And by and large, we have a good bench here in Montgomery County. So I'm not saying we have a bad bench.
We have a lot of benches because unlike Franklin County, which has one municipal court, we have multiple municipal courts because more courts means more patronage jobs. Just remember that.
But, to summarize on my end, I think being a precinct captain is a great way for you to kind of dip your foot into politics, whether it be in the Democrat side or the Republican side. You get to know people, you get to be involved, and you really get to make a difference. I got involved being a precinct captain when I was actually 18 years old. A woman named Betty Smith, who was actually ended up being the director of the Board of Elections. I was friends with her daughter, and she knew I was interested in politics. Kind of got me involved in the local Republican Party, and it spawned my interest into being involved in campaigns here in Montgomery County and doing the things I've done, like being county chairman, like the Tea Party, and then even running. We
won't acknowledge that.
And even running for office for myself because I serve on city council in Kettering. So the precinct captain, if you are interested, it's a great conduit to kind of get involved in your government and in your political party.
And to summarize for me, and I know this has been really long, and I really appreciate you sticking in and watching it, then I got pulled into this kicking and screaming when I asked to screen the Democratic Party. I was a Democrat. I hadn't been involved in the party. And the first time I went in that locked room upstairs at the old Democratic Party HQ, the first question they ask you is, if we don't endorse you in a primary, will you drop out? And those words burned in my head, and I said, this is an undemocratic Democratic Party, and this has to stop. And that was the beginning of my fight for democracy in our political parties in Montgomery County. Thank you. I'm David Ezrati. I'm a Democrat.
I'm Rob Scott, and I'm a Republican.
And we thank you for your time.
Here.